I'm taking notes as well.
Well, yeah, great, and it's available to the rest of our delegation is the great part, because you're sharing such good information. Sorry to interrupt.
No, thank you, Senator. Bambie, I wanted to see if you had anything to add if you joined. Yep.
Yes, good afternoon. Hopefully y'all can hear me okay. I am tuned in from the big city of Hawkinsville, Georgia. If you don't know where that is, that's south and east of I-75 in South Central Georgia. But yes, I think you explained it very well, because there are, previously it was already a struggle for especially nonprofit developers to be able to develop affordable rental housing, what we call truly affordable rental housing, especially for those at or below 60% or AMI, especially those at 30% or below of AMI. And then when you add in the property taxes, that pretty much almost knocks them out of being able to develop even more affordable housing. And we know with the increased wealth gap in the city of Atlanta, Fulton County, and as I just finished a meeting in Fort Valley, it's all over the state of Georgia. Any type of relief that we could give our mission-based nonprofit developers would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sara, and thank you, Bambie, for all the work that you have done over the years and through the emails. Just one quick question as it relates to the regularity of the meetings that your coalition has. When do those happen? Would y'all like to come back and speak with us? Would you like for us to be a part of your meetings? How should we move this relationship forward?
Thank you, Representative Cannon. I would say our meetings have been ad hoc and over email, developing relationships, like I said, over the last 2 years. Bambie and I have kept everyone apprised and in the loop. I think some of our folks are actually here. Would defer to you, Representative Cannon. I know we've also been talking to Representative Dreyer, but maybe you all could come to our next meeting, or if we'd be welcomed at your next meeting, maybe we could bring some more of our folks just so they can share their experience with this issue.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So we will move on to our second presentation now. There is actually one of the organizations that you mentioned as a part of your coalition, FCS, has been really great, providing some opportunity for affordable housing in what I would consider to be a new way. And so, Katie, I'm going to kick it over to you to just give us a quick little rundown on your organization, the work that you do, and possibly if there's any follow-up from the conversation you had with the City of Atlanta legislators, city council member.
Well, thank you so much, Representative Cannon. It's great to be with each and every one of you today, and thank you for the invitation to share briefly today. So my name is Katie Delp, and I am with Focused Community Strategies, FCS, because the rest of it's just a mouthful. We are a 40-year-old place-based organization working in communities in Southeast Atlanta since the late 70s, but we have spent a majority of the last 2 decades with all of our focus on the neighborhood of historic South Atlanta, which is sandwiched right between Peoplestown and Lakewood, a really sweet historic community. We were invited by this neighborhood and its leaders to create a thriving mixed income single family neighborhood. And over the last 20 years, through our affordable housing efforts, our wraparound services, and our economic development opportunities, we have created a neighborhood that went from 10% home ownership to 60% home ownership, and a full 30% of the neighborhood is actually owned by families who are 80% AMI or below. And so one of the only examples of a mixed income neighborhood in a single family environment throughout the city of Atlanta, we have large mixed income apartment complex and LIHTC developments, but we're a little bit unique in doing it on the single family side and doing it with home ownership, because we believe that's the real change agent for families. to build generational wealth. It is our greatest asset. We're also working on a couple of different initiatives, as Representative Cannon mentioned, about really helping families maximize the one asset that they do have, which is their home, but most importantly, the land on which it is. And so partnering with the city of Atlanta and some others to, as the zoning has changed, and creating some new models to build accessory dwelling units, back houses, guest houses onto their current property, in order to first create more units and density in the community, but also allow that wealth creation to be for that primary homeowner. So that's one thing that we have been piloting, and that Representative Cannon has been kind of the closest to, and we're excited. I also just want to touch on, we are one of the organizations that Sara just spoke about, and we have a portfolio of single family homes that we rent. We have about 25 homes right now that we rent to families. Most of all are below 80% AMI. And we don't have any subsidy for these. We just don't have to make a profit. But the expenses of a house in Buckhead are the same as the expenses of a house in South Atlanta. And so we are not exempt from the increase in those property taxes. And ultimately, that increase in the end gets passed down to that family who's in the home. And we don't want to have to do that. And so eliminating that burden, that tax burden, directly goes to families. So it helps the nonprofit, but ultimately the true beneficiary of this is always going to be that family whose rent can stay at a rate that makes sense for their family. So just wanted to kind of put that in perspective. I also would just say that there are so many programs and so many fabulous programs around LIHTC. We are building a LIHTC development right now, but it costs $270,000 to build a LIHTC home. We can build a single family home and a rental for way less than that with no subsidy. And so as we continue to think about innovation and changing the landscape for affordability within our city, we need to be giving just as much attention to single family homes, because you can do it for less money. And with the certain tools, we can do it almost at the same scale as some of the LIHTC development. So thank you so much for the time. Willing to answer any questions, but I know we're also on a very tight schedule. So thanks for your consideration, for your interest and your investment in making Atlanta a really great place for all families.
Thank you so much, Katie. And so we can provide a little bit more information to our members in the minutes. If there's anything that you want us to send to our members, any facts or figures, or any specific asks, feel free to just follow up with me and we'll include it in the minutes. And I just want to drill down on, one of the specific programs, and it's a segue to our other speaker, which is, accessory dwelling units, granny flats, or, in-law suites, in the state of Georgia legislatively versus in the city of Atlanta versus in the city of Decatur. There have been some different legislative shifts. And so our delegation just wants to continue to be at the cutting edge of that. This is our capital city, but we also understand that we have different challenges. So really excited about what y'all are providing. Thank you very much. So our third speaker, we have two individuals from this organization, so I'll let them take it away and determine how they're going to share their time. However, this is a firm that actually is doing some savvy constructing with housing around the Metro Atlanta area, and has also recently spoken with the city council members. So I'll let Tony and Kesa take it away from Atelier 7.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Representative Cannon, for the introduction. First, I'd like to say on behalf of myself and Kesa, this is a wonderful opportunity for us to sort of have a voice real quick to kind of express some other options that we currently have in the state of Georgia for housing. Our firm, interestingly enough, focuses on shipping container houses. I have a little sort of slideshow. I'm an architect, so graphics sort of my thing. I think maybe we can give you some pictures, and if I can take command of the room, I can walk you through sort of where we are. This is a brand new building program in the state of Georgia. We actually did the first shipping container park in the state and the city. And from that actually helped create this firm. Kesa and I have been on a pathway of sort of being change agents in the housing market. And I would like to show you some new opportunities for housing. Thank you. We're going to do keynote. There we go. And I'm going to present. Okay. Oops. Would help if I started the first one. So one of the things I want to go through the agenda quick. What this is going to be fast for me. So I'm going to give you an overview of shipping containers because there is probably some preconceived ideas of what containers are, and I can tell you some other things that they really are. I want to talk a little bit about, there's two types of flavors of shipping containers that most people don't know about. It's recycling of container and one called a purpose-built. I think I got a little feedback on House Bill 664. This is powerful. To me, it cements this building program into the code, and it helps give it some teeth. I'll talk a little bit about affordable housing and our efforts there, and then a little bit about us, a little less about us. Shipping containers, the first container house that was done in this country was back in 1996. Since then, we have variations of container housing throughout every state in the country. The biggest problem that we have right now with containers is every state has a different sort of take on how to permit the container. And in all actuality, the shipping container is embedded in the building code, and it's always been there. You just gotta sort of know the codes on how to get it to work it. There are some processes that are already in place. The biggest concern is, well, did it have nuclear material in it, pesticides, it gets hot? Well, there are some already developed processes that the state has, the country has on how to determine that and what types of boxes to use. So everything that we use either for business or for residential is perfectly suited for that manner. Working with a container is exactly like working with a steel building. It's not really that different. It's just sort of different what we're accustomed to. We're so used to seeing sticks and bricks, and then when you start to see metal structure, it's foreign to us, so we sort of push back on it. Containers are either recycled, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and I'm going to talk a little bit about purpose-built. The great thing about the state of Georgia is we actually have 4 manufacturers that are certified in the state of Georgia already. And we are getting the 5th manufacturer certified this month in February, and this will be the first minority company doing shipping container fabrication in the country. And so Georgia will be home to 5 certified companies, 2 of which are actually in the state of Georgia. So typically what we do with shipping containers when we're trying to build either a business, a restaurant, a house, is we find an old box or what we call a new box, one trip, and we recycle it. So we're calling it upcycling. And that's basically, we have a shipping container box that we are giving it new. Me, it's always been, it was designed to carry materials from one place to another. And we have now taken that box out of cycle and now given it a new embodied lifestyle of becoming a house or business. So it continues to evolve and be recycled. And that's, in terms of saving materials and how we build today, that's very powerful. The price of containers has been all over the map, but in the summertime, it got up to $16,000. We're down to $6,000. So this has become very affordable to use. Some of the cons of shipping containers, and I'll make sure that you get this presentation. The biggest con of a shipping container is really its look. You either like it or you don't like it. And part of it has been what we've discovered in our work, is somewhat NIMBYism of It's a little different. So we've actually been able to work where we can change the look of the container by cladding it on the outside. So you're not stuck with, if you don't like the corrugated style, but you want brick on it, we have processes in which we can do that. I think the future of the shipping container in this community, especially in the city of Atlanta, is we have several depots that supply containers, and I've been pushing for some changes with the city that will allow some of these smaller suppliers to at least allow us to modify the boxes, so we're not forced into going into these big houses to get the work done. We can actually use smaller businesses to get this done. I'm also looking and having discussions with the city of Atlanta on the business side of simplifying the codes for kiosks so that we could create these smaller businesses. We're doing a package now for the Delp line where these don't have to be so restrictive in terms of how they're placed on the ground and the modifications that we make. The coolest thing in the shipping container industry for me is what's called a purpose-built modular. A purpose-built container looks like a shipping container. It's built on the platform of a container, but it's not a container. It's actually built in the factory for whatever you want to use it. So if Representative Parks calls us and says, I want a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house done out of containers, that steel frame is then constructed to match her specifications. So it's never used for shipping, it's never used for cargo. And so it's now really classified as a modular building by the state of Georgia. This is a game changer for us because it uses the shipping container logistics and platform for travel. That's the great thing about the container in terms of a building module. Everything in our transportation system is based on the container, our bridge heights, our trucks, our boats. And so this building can be pulled by F-150, put on a barge, it can be lifted by crane, by a forklift. Purpose-built changes the industry for us. We have one manufacturer in the country right now that's currently building in LA. They are now moving their factory to San Diego and opening one up in Miami. The Miami facet then provides Georgia with a linkage between Florida, the ports, and our 2 local fabricators here, where we can then start to develop a network of friendly sort of sourcing to be able to provide high volume containers. I won't go through the whole House bill, but the one piece in the House bill that I read, which was on page 19-20, was the actual possibility of bringing local government into a fabricator's factory and either allowing the state to permit the project or allowing the local government or community to inspect it and permit it. And I have not tested this with the city of Atlanta, but I'm going to share this piece because I think this is a big game changer, because you can now build in a factory and have the inspectors, local inspectors, now come into the factory to do their inspections where there's a controlled environment. And we probably would get more information and data out of them in terms of making sure we're meeting compliancy and working in a safer condition than running around and scaffolding, et cetera. Shipping containers and affordability. If you're building an apartment building, there's nothing faster than shipping container construction. You will save 30 to 40% of the time in construction. Now, here's a caveat on a shipping container. Everybody has been told or read that they're cheaper, and they're not. The interior of a shipping container, when we're dealing with interiors, is no different than when you're building a normal house. I mean, a kitchen is the same if it's in a brick building, a shipping container, or a wood building. So really the savings is in the construction and the speed of construction and our ability to mass produce. There is where the leverage is, to bring in more product, lower the cost of the initial products that we're putting in the building, and then building from that. The other thing with shipping containers is its inherent ability to stack and increase or subtract. Just like the picture that you see here, this is a 5-story apartment building. If it's deemed 10 years from now that we don't want 5 stories and we need to move this, we could subtract and take components of this off and relocate them, or we can expand and make this taller. So it has the ability to increase scale a lot better than you can do with wood or any other type of product. The other thing that factory fabrication for shipping containers allows is workforce training. And I think for communities, this is very, very powerful because this provides a structured environment for bringing in new talent, community people who we're trying to put back into the marketplace. There's a reduction in waste because we now control materials. We're not just out here cutting 2x4s and throwing the waste away. We are predicting and can calculate how much wood and the lengths to the actual sizes we need, and it's cut to that to fit. And as I said before, there are a whole bunch of different ways to change the look of the container. So it's just really up to the imagination. For our firm, we are 3 years old. I started with an idea of designing this container park for the city of Atlanta and iVillage. If you have yet to been able to come by here, I really would like all of you just to drive by, stop by, walk into the park. It's a fantastic place to see. The interesting fact on iVillage was 50% of the work was done in the factory, 50% on site. And the day we installed this building, it went up in 4.5 hours. So if you were on MARTA and went to work that day, when you came back, you saw a city in the parking lot. And so this is part of one of our bigger programs now of trying to what we call utilize underutilized asphalt, where we sort of build in parking lots for interim housing until we can figure out really where we're heading. Parking lots provide adequate land. We already have infrastructure in place. You can simply tap into it. Our firm has been really focused on single family ownership. I have an issue with renting. Renting is important, but I've been focusing on the purchasing and home ownership side, feeling that it's very important for all of us to own a piece of America. So in the city of Atlanta, the way we've been attacking that is taking single family lots and trying to work in areas where we can increase density, either through duplexes, quads, and pocket communities. The first picture you see at the top could be and represent sort of a pocket community where you could tuck in, say, a 3/4 acre lot, 8 to 10 units that nicely commingle with each other, centered around a common amenity space. We are currently working in Albany and Savannah and Augusta, trying to do some additional housing. And I've given you sort of a listing of some of the states. Over the last 2 years, we did iVillage in 2019. We are about finishing documentation now for Atlanta's first apartment building done out of shipping containers. And we have 3 new container parks that are showing up in Atlanta in various communities. And we are actually been retained by the Beltline. The Beltline is finally making their first foray into small event space and micro business opportunities on the Beltline. Thank you very much. And I can answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you so much. That was great. Super helpful. Super helpful. And we had a question that came through in the chat from one of the legislators. And so I want to see if Representative Maynor is available to discuss the status of the bill. Maybe not. We can follow up on that for the representative who asked about the status of the bill. At this time, I think that we just have an opportunity for any legislators who have any other questions, and then we'll do public comment, and then we'll close out.
Mayor Margaret has her hand up, and Becky Evans.
Okay.
Mayor Margaret.
Thank you. I'm recognized. Thank you very much. I was the person who asked the question about where is 664, in what committee, had a hearing. And you were talking about starting with the Beltline. Tell me how many units of you have are on the ground, occupied by homeowners. How many you planned? How many have actually been sold? I'm looking at your list of projects, and I'm just curious, are they planned projects? Are there people on the ground living there? And where are they?
Okay, so our first house was done over here on Wilson Avenue, over in the West End, and it's a single family house that was constructed for around $150,000, and they sold it last September for $340,000. Doesn't make it affordable, but the constructability of the house proved to us that we were able, on a single family lot, to create a home for under $200,000. We have then since built a house in Carrollton and have one going up in Hiram, but these aren't what I would call affordable models. The apartment building that we're building on the Lanier is about to go to permitting, so that should start to rise sometime in June. Beltline is developing a micro business program with group Village Market. And I think we anticipate these are going to be, I think, small businesses for small business. So we will have, I think, 4 boxes going underneath Freedom Parkway Bridge and one over by Aluma Farms on the Beltway. And so this is their pilot to test to see, does this type of temporary portable architecture work for them? And then the rest of, I think, our project in Augusta is we actually got shipping containers approved in the Augusta Historic District. We're just waiting on a factory to come online to help to build this. So,
if I could follow up just very briefly, just as an example, the business projects under the Freedom Parkway, is that land owned by whom? And the business will be owned by whom? And is it permanent or temporary? And define temporary.
Land owned by Beltline, businesses are temporary. So these will be, I think, rental. I think they're doing 6-month leases. Mm-hmm. And the whole program is temporary, but it can be moved. The design is so that it can be picked up and moved to another spot on the Beltline if needed.
And that'll be the first in Atlanta when that project is implemented. And you, yes. I'm just curious about, it's a very exciting project. I'm just curious about how it's rolling out. So thank you very much.
Yeah, it should. We are working for it, and I'm not supposed to tell anybody, but I'll share that we are working for a May 1st unveiling, and it's moving very rapidly. So I mean, and the beauty for me of all of this is how fast we can assemble and put together and create this type of architecture and then get it implemented.
Yes. Thank you. This is Representative Becky Evans here, and I'm excited about this too. And I actually, up in North Carolina, I've seen some communities, some shipping container communities. There's one in Old Fort that I've gone by several times. But but I'm confused because what about iVillage? I thought that had been built, but you didn't mention that just now.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot. I am actually living in iVillage right now. So yeah, iVillage is up and running. We're at the Hamilton Homes Transit Station, and it houses 8 micro offices, various businesses for people from the community.
Okay.
So I think we're in our 3rd year.
And then I have another question about windows, because the ones I've seen just have windows at the end, but then in that model, when you were showing some drawings, it looked like you were doing windows on the long side of them too. But can you tell us about that?
You can put windows anywhere on a container, and it's what you're doing. And so if I'm repurposing a container or taking a used one, we will cut a hole in it and we add steel back. If I'm doing a purpose-built container, I'm building that opening in the frame. Here at iVillage, we don't have windows on the side, on the ends. We actually have big windows on the side. So that helps keep that sort of small space feeling much larger than what it really is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I know there was one more question. Oh, go ahead.
Hey, thank you, Representative. I had a question, Nan Orrock. All of these have been really valuable presentations. Tony, on your end, we heard the challenge of these mission-driven nonprofits that are making available low cost rental, and the challenge of taxing those homes that the people are virtually, they're in there and able to function, but that tax burden is untenable. And how does that work for you and what you're doing? And also 2 examples or 3 that you gave, that West End container is now up there in the between $300,000 and $400,000. I mean, so that's clearly a whole different direction than affordable housing.
So our mission has been one, we've been trying to solve this problem without government. At my age, I don't have time to learn tax credits and try to figure it out. So we've been working on what we call mixed income communities, where we blend sort of the 65 to 125% in a nice community where we can all sort of grow together. The way you solve, I think, this taxation problem is through density. We have to get rid of single family lots, and these single family lots have to start to grow into duplexes, quadruplexes, and something a little more dense where you can share the cost of that taxation across 4, 6, or 8 families. The shipping containers footprint is not necessarily small because we just glue more. I either glue the boxes together or we've got tricks that we do to increase space. So there isn't a size limitation in terms of the container, but we are focused on sort of a more less is more type living lifestyle and micro spaces. And it's fast. And what I like about it is it could be deemed as interim housing or step up housing until you're ready to build something bigger. So it's easily dismountable. I can take it apart just as fast as I put it together. We actually started down this pathway of testing this as a pilot. We went to the city 2 years ago as a way of, if the city would provide us a piece of property, that we would find the funding sources and everything we need to build the project. And we have got a commitment from Unity National Bank to fund us to build 9 container homes. And we had a lot through the land bank, but it's been tied up for 2 years, just trying to get an opportunity. So that's been part of my petition of, if we can find some cost affordable land that we can work with, we would love to show everybody what we can do and how we can create a blended community. If you haven't, and on another note, if you ever get a chance, I'm also a board member with Microlife. If you ever get a chance, go over in Clarkston, it's called the Cottages on Vaughn. It's 9 houses. The smallest one is 250 square feet. The largest is 495. And it is a fantastic community. I think everybody thinks, oh, I don't think I can live in something that's small, and it's not for everybody. But it's a great, wonderful example of how you can create density without feeling like somebody's on top of you. And I'm always surprised when we talk about a density like that, because I mean, we look at an apartment building and you've got 350 other people right next to you, and that's as dense as you're going to get. And that's acceptable, but sort of when it gets to the single family mode, it becomes a problem. So I think those are some built examples that are fantastic. And we were modeling our container pocket community after the Microlife version. And I'm hoping that the city starts to jump on that bandwagon and take a look at it.
Well, this has been wonderful. Any other members have any questions?
Representative Canada, can you tell again the status of the effort to address the onerous tax burden on these mission-driven nonprofits?
Yes, so that's different than 664. Representative Dreyer is leading on that issue from the Fulton County side. I know he's been, working severely on it. So is he here? I don't want to speak over him.
I haven't seen him on the call.
Yeah, I haven't seen him.
You did, yeah. So that's a work in progress. And Spencer Fry, Representative Fry from Athens, had done that earlier adjustment to the statutes for habitat.
Correct, yes. We reached some blocks last year, but I do think that Representative Dreyer has a new strategy, so I'll just try to get those and put them in the minutes. I'd prefer to have it from his perspective.
Right.
So as to make it possible for it to pass. So lastly, all we have today is some public comment. I was contacted by some constituents who have been dealing with those experiencing homelessness. And so I just want to give them an opportunity to speak from their business, what they're experiencing, and then we'll see if anyone else has public comment before we close out. So I'm going to send it over to Brandon.
Hello, my name is Brandon. I'm here with my property manager. We're an apartment complex here in Midtown called the Crest at Midtown. We've been dealing with a lot of homeless in the area, even to the point where it has now jeopardized the safety of some of our residents. And we were informed when we reached out to a couple people within City Council that the local homeless shelters in the area had been closed down recently, and we were not aware of that. So now we're dealing with the issue of we're having homeless that are sleeping like on the property. They're in our stairwells, and of course it's Midtown, so we kind of expect some type of foot traffic from homeless. But we wanted to see more or less what is the resolution, or what is the area or the direction that you guys are going for to kind of tackle this? Because even when we try to call law enforcement, we've gotten pushback from law enforcement that says, hey, this is Midtown, this is something you have to deal with. Or it's been an issue where when we call 911, we've even been told that no one is going to be able to come out. So we just want to know, like, from a business standpoint, because now we're starting to lose residents wanting to move away from our property. So we're kind of just needing some help here.
America runs on Duncan. New Vicks convenience pack.
Thank you for that, Brandon. Thank you for the information.
Super C for me. Vicks Super C is a daily supplement.
As we realize, as an affordable housing subcommittee of the state, the conversation around those experiencing homelessness, the closest we get is with the Department of Community Affairs. And so I will speak with them as well. If there are any other legislators on the call who are interested in doing a site visit, I know that Brandon is interested in having some legislators come and see, but we will include the contact information in the minutes. Do any legislators have any comments? Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment today?
Representative Cannon, this is Keisha Waits on the line. The homeless dynamic is something that is personal to me, and I'd like to assist, so I would like to join you on that site visit.
Thank you, and it's my understanding that you just completed the point in time count. So would love to hear, if you have a quick moment, how that went.
I think it went extremely well. There were multiple teams that went out to assess the needs. I think this is something like a census. And so Kathy Marchman, I think, would be the more appropriate person, because, again, I can only speak from one lens, as I was in one of the vehicles. We met with 17 individuals who had needs for sheltering. We provided them with some goods and resources that evening. But as you and I have spoken before, the conversation is about long-term housing. I can tell you many of them were upfront about the fact that there was some drug addiction issues. I suspected some with mental health. And so it's my hope, and you and I have spoken of this, is that we can look at, I think there was a meeting yesterday with our Congresswoman, to look at how we can supplement federal, state, as well as some local resources that we have to move this forward. And I think Kathy Marchman will be our point of contact.
That's newly elected council member Keisha Waits, who served with us in the legislature for some years. Thank you, Councilmember Waits.
Thank you, Senator.
Wonderful. Well, if there's no additional public comment at this time.
Representative Cannon, Paul Bolster has his hand up.
You're recognized.
Paul, take off mute, unmute yourself, Paul.
Unmute. Okay. My question about the tax exemption for single family houses that are rented under $600. I wondered whether you would, what the reason would be to limit it to nonprofits. Because if you had a for-profit who could meet the same goal, why wouldn't you offer the exemption for taxation to them as well? I think you might get a bigger impact on the issue if you did that.
Thank you for the input. As I stated in the private chat, these are the providers who have been burdened and who reached out to us. And so we've been working with the nonprofits to try to address the needs that they've been expressing to us over the past 3 years. I would say from the perspective of Representative Dreyer and I, over the years, we've been open to multiple strategies to try to meet the needs that the nonprofits have been expressing to us. And so I don't think there's a closed door there, but I do want to say that we've been firmly pushing to address the tax burdens that the nonprofits have been experiencing.
Let me ask, Paul, you and the 3 churches on Capitol Hill have been involved and secured the green light to put up a 10-story affordable housing facility across from City Hall. And I know that's in its infancy in terms of the pulling together all of the funding threads for that. But is that an example of a for-profit, or does that fit? And that's apartments. That this is not a house that's being taxed.
Yes, it'll be a multifamily project right across from City Hall. We've been, the Capital Area Neighborhood Development Corporation has been selected as the developer. We're 25% of the development process. Another for-profit is 75%. There will be no tax exemption on this property, so it'll pay based on the way taxes are assessed on a commercial property. I'm hoping that since we are affordable housing, that our income will indicate and affect how much property tax is actually owned on the building, which it should under current ways in which commercial property is assessed. We will not have the income of a for-profit development, and we'll be at 85% of the units will be at 60% of AMI. There will be about 15% of the units that will go above that. That will be on an average. Some will be higher, some will be lower. So we're looking forward to the process of working with Invest Atlanta on that. There is financing and all the details have got to be worked out. That's why we have a bigger, deeper pocket organization with us to do all of that work, design, detailed design, and all that.
Thank you.
Keep you informed on that. Thank you for asking.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to pass it back to the House and Senate chairs to close us out.
Well, thanks very much, Representative Cannon, because you really turned on a dime and put together a program that I found very enlightening. We want to point out to everybody that the information, the contact information for our presenters is in the chat, or should be added to the chat now, those of you who presented. And there is much to follow up on, and we have in place a permanent part of our structure of the City of Atlanta delegation of this affordable housing subcommittee that Representative Dreyer and Representative Cannon are deeply engaged in leading. We're getting other from in the chat from legislators as well, and I just want to say it's been an enormous window open, I think, on the efforts that are going on across our city, at conceptual as well as actual and on the ground. And we welcome an open channel of communication, and our point person, Representative Cannon, can keep that going and feeding us information. And we look forward to putting our shoulder to the wheel. Thank you for the work that all of you are doing on these tough issues, shoulder to the wheel, 24/7 around the clock, all year long. Thank you so much for your expertise and your dedication and passion and the lessons that you are drawing and learning and ways that can lead the policy discussions and the policy measures and the budgeting that's undertaken. I know we have a concern that emergency rent, which is another whole aspect of this, is these monitoring these federal dollars that are coming down from the programs in Washington. A new abundance in contrast to some prior years. And the last number I heard, there were only 10% of those emergency rental funds had been moved out into the communities across the state. Fulton County has dispersed 100% of their share. Henry County has dispersed 100%. But that we can revisit that topic as well. I just want to flag that's very salient. As we speak, there's an enormous amount of money, and there's a clawback possibility from the federal agency, which we don't want to see, and that's being administered through the Department of Community Affairs, and that would be someone to get on a future Fulton County or City of Atlanta delegation meeting. Again, thanks so much, Representative Cannon. Deep thanks and appreciation to our presenters, and feel absolutely an open door invitation to stay in touch with us singly or collectively. And I know Elizabeth Apley is one of the people that works, who's on the call today, who works representing many of the initiatives and the interests that we've heard about today at the Capitol, and has been impossible to get, for the first time in modern history, some relief for renters in terms of the landlord renter dynamic that has been kind of stacked, let us say kindly, not in favor of those who rent. And so again, Elizabeth, I've used another source of information, and you worked with the Georgia Act. So thank you for joining us as well.
Thank you, Shannon.
Yes. Betsy Holland, Representative Holland, do you have anything to add, any information? Maybe we could repeat our schedule for upcoming days, because some people joined us after that was said.
Absolutely. I echo Senator Orrock's thanks to everyone who participated today. We are continuing on a schedule of meeting as an Atlanta joint delegation every other Friday. So that means our next delegation meeting is scheduled for February 11th. The agenda is still being finalized, but we know that is when we'll hear from Atlanta Public Schools about their legislative priorities. And then 2 weeks after that, among the things on our agenda, we'll be looking at the MARTA and transit updates as well. This Zoom link, for those of you who join us, should work for all of the scheduled Atlanta delegation meetings moving forward. But we will let you know if there's any shift in time like we had today. But our goal is noon every other Fridays at this Zoom link.
And people should understand that they can, this is open to the public meeting, and you can you can get on the list to get the distribution of the meeting announcements by reaching out to Betsy Holland's staff.
Yeah, in fact, I'll just put my email address in the chat really quickly. If y'all would like to be added, let me know, and I'll pass that along to my chief of staff. And
your chief of staff has put her information in as well.
Of course she has, because she's always way ahead of me. So thank you, Sara Fuchs, for managing that list.
We're going to wrap up, and with thanks again to those who participated. Much work to be done, high needs to be met, families who need relief, and policies that need to be adapted and changed to meet the times in which we live. We thank you all, and we look forward to your staying in touch with us. Very much
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you for doing this.